Welcome into the Autzen Audibles Podcast. Matt Prehm, Jared Mack on the show on this Thursday edition, new day for the show. We're gonna swap up the dates here on the podcast. We're off season mode. We're shifting to 2 a week unless there's breaking news. So that'll be Mondays and Thursdays that we record podcasts. But again, like I said, breaking news happens. We'll hop on here. We'll get it going, and then like normal, during the fall when football season kicks back up again, I should say in August, summer still, we'll go back to the regular consistency of 4, 5, sometimes even 6 podcasts per week. You can go to duckterritory.com for more coverage of the Oregon Duck football program, more in-depth coverage there if you're looking for more. Jared, the Ducks have landed 2 verbal commitments on the football side right around the spring game. There was so much to get to, whether it was transfer portal, whether it was previewing the spring game or recapping the spring game, recapping the transfer portal news. This kind of flew under the radar a little bit on the podcast. I mean, we talked about Casey Kelly committing to Oregon, the transfer portal edition, but we didn't talk about Oregon landing Luke Moga and also a quarterback, 3-star quarterback out of Sunny Slope High School in Phoenix, Arizona, and also Jackson Ford, a 3-star tight end from Melissa, Texas. Let's start there because I think it was Jackson Ford who went first, I believe, off the top of my
he
head.
definitely went first. Yep. Out of Melissa.
Out of Melissa, 6'5", 230-pound prospect. D lineman, also a tight end. Oregon's taking him as a tight end. Drew Maringer was the big recruiter for Oregon staff here. Maringer has some ties to Texas, and obviously Ford is from there. So is Will Stein, new offensive coordinator. I think this is they already have AJ Pugliano, a 4-star commit from Oregon, the top player in the state of Oregon. They want to, they need to. You've been hammering home on the podcast for over a year now that they need to have more scholarship tight ends. So they go in and they land a second one. But I think Jackson Ford's kind of one of these guys that he could play tight end at Oregon. But if maybe a bigger name pops up at that position, he could easily switch over to the defensive line and be just as good of a prospect at that spot. Really good athlete. Really talented tight end, no doubt. I'm not trying to downplay his skills there, but this is a versatile guy that could give Oregon a lot of options.
Yeah, and I think that's the point of signing him, or at least getting him to commit, is that positional versatility. I think that they should keep him more as a tight end. I think he's going to be a better tight end prospect. And I think Oregon will need him more on tight end than along the defensive line. It certainly was a surprising commitment. I don't think this was on anybody's radar. I remember when Dan tweeted the duck emoji that it took a while to get any kind of confirmation on who this was and who it was going to be, because Jackson Ford was unranked before he committed to Oregon, and now he's a 3-star prospect, the 45th tight end, or excuse me, the 48th best tight end in the country according to the 247 Sports Top 247. Not a whole lot to make of this one. I think this one is pretty clean, cut and dry. This is an athletic kid who's just going into his, I guess he's class 24, so he'll be going into his senior year of football next year. And I think that he's going to get better with age and better with more experience at the tight end position. Obviously can play defensive end. I think he played that for most of his career until recently. Again, I think that this is a good pickup for Oregon. I think it's a really under-the-radar pickup. This is maybe one of those kids that probably is more of a development guy. Always interesting when you can get a development kid out of the state of Texas, because it's usually going to probably have better ramifications than a development kid out of the state of Oregon or Washington. So I think that's a positive for Oregon. Drew Maringer did a good job seemingly with this. I mean, it's good. It's good that Oregon is going to have more scholarship tight ends, but like you said, Matt, if there's a better scholarship tight end or a better tight end prospect that comes along the way that has more interest in Oregon, I don't think the Ducks are going to have any fear in adding that person alongside Jackson. I don't think they're going to have any fear of if Jackson decommits. I mean, in the last couple of days, he's already gotten a few more offers. So I think that kind of shows you the type of player that he is. That this commitment to Oregon could be a very good thing for the Ducks as he, showcases his talents along summer circuits at 6'5", 240 pounds of a tight end. But overall, I think that this is going to be more of a developmental piece than a day one. This guy can play, even though they might only have 2 scholarship tight ends on the roster next season with Patrick Herbert and Terrence Ferguson potentially gone.
Yeah, Jackson Ford, you mentioned it. He picked up an offer from Memphis shortly after his commitment to Oregon. He also has a UTSA offer, meaning Will Stein recruited him prior to getting to Oregon. Tulane was in a New Year's Six Bowl this past year. They have offered him a scholarship, and then bigger schools like Texas Tech, Houston, Cal, Boise State, ASU, and San Diego State have also offered Jackson Ford a scholarship. Should be interesting to see his development the rest of spring and summer, and then going into the football season. This gives Oregon 2 verbal commitments. AJ Pugliano, which I said earlier, he's the other one. And I spoke with AJ at a football camp in Eugene the day after the spring game, and he's pretty much locked in. He's not even going to like a lot of other these 7-on-7 camps with his 7-on team. He's just focused on spring football and doing Zoom calls with Drew Maringer. He's not even considering other schools right now. So for the current moment, at least, it feels like these are your 2 tight ends for the 2024 recruiting class. That could change depending upon who becomes available, who shows interest. I would imagine they continue to go after the big dogs at this position. It would make a lot of sense for that, for Oregon to continue doing it as well. Now, the other name that committed to Oregon over the spring game weekend, Luke Moga, 3-star quarterback, Sunny Slope High School in Phoenix. And Jared, this is a guy that has had a huge, I wouldn't say like huge, but has had a really good climb during the off season of high school football. Really solid, really good year as a junior this past season. He threw for 2,200 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He also ran for 539 yards and 5 touchdowns. Is a very good track athlete for a quarterback. Ran a 10.93 in the 100 meters. He ran a 200-meter time of 22.53 in April of 2022. I think he's ran quicker numbers this spring than he did last spring. We know he's competing for his track team, and this is a quarterback that comes from, to my understanding, a high school in Phoenix that's got very little tradition of being a successful program in the Phoenix metro area. He's kind of been part of a class that's made this school, a playoff contender, when historically they aren't a playoff team. And that, I think that is a trait that you like. It's not going to be like the deciding factor of should you offer or not, but this is a guy who hasn't ran away from where he's, grown up and the school he should normally play for, to play for a powerhouse school, and he's excelling at it and he's lifting up the program. I think there's some kind of like secondary value in that idea as well.
Yeah, I don't see why not. It's always a good thing when guys stick around. I guess to sound a little bit like old man yells at cloud. Always good when guys stick around and don't jump their name into the portal or do that stuff, even though I'm a huge proponent of the portal and I'm kind of talking about it out of 2 sides of my mouth right now. But Luke Moga, committed to the Ducks, quarterback. I'm glad you brought up the track prospect from him. Just an elite athlete, really good athlete. His sophomore season at Sunny Slope, he was a receiver. He had over 300 yards receiving and had like an 83-yard touchdown. So that shows you the type of stuff that he has, just bringing his athleticism to the field. As a quarterback, Matt, you went through the stats. Again, to Matt's point, it's not a program that's built on their, success at the football level. They're not going to have as much talent as other high schools in the Phoenix area. Excuse me. But this is a guy who, again, almost threw for 2,300 yards. The completion percentage is a little worrisome at 47%. But again, only 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I think that's more than manageable. Overall, I like his mechanics. I think he throws the ball with ease, just kind of flings it out of his hand. There's no real high effort, high intensity stuff with him. Like you said, Matt, this is a kid who wasn't necessarily on the national scene for a long time. And then over the summer, through recruiting camps and 7-on-7 camps, he's kind of blown up. And I think that Oregon, it could potentially the same as Jackson Ford, but I think Moga's more surefire of it. I think Oregon got in before the getting was good. In the last couple months, he's got TCU offers, Michigan State offers, Utah offers, shout out Boston College offers. But Miami's a school that offered him. Oklahoma State was offered him even before Oregon offered him. Those are all, good programs across the country. And they're all seeing this on film. They're all seeing this after his junior season and saying, yeah, this guy could do really well in our system or could progress into a good quarterback. And I think it's important that Oregon got to him early. And credit to Will Stein, because this is going to be, I would say this is his second recruiting battle victory after keeping Bo Nix around town. But this is his first true prep recruiting battle, and that he's won. And
what about
Austin Novosad? Yeah, but I feel like this one is a little different. This is like,
sure,
hey, I'm making the new relationship with you.
I
didn't know you from before. So he did that, and he's got him on board. And I don't know where Moga's going to end up at the end of the day in terms of his recruiting aspect, like whether he's a top 4-star or mid or whatever the case may be. I do think that he'll rise in the rankings over the course of the summer. Like, there's too many opportunities for him to not do so. So it's going to look good at the end of the day when, ultimately, if he does sign with Oregon or whatever team he does sign with, he's going to be a good quarterback prospect and really add to your class. I don't think he's a guy you kind of plug and play. I think he's similar to Novosad, where he's going to have to sit a year. Sit a year or two. He's going to have to learn the system. He's going to have to learn the fundamentals of college football. While it is nice that he stayed at his lower high school and turned them into competitor, oftentimes the competition you face at a lower high school isn't as good as what it would be if he went to like Saguaro High School in Phoenix or Scottsdale or wherever that one is. If he did, he'd be playing higher competition and learning how much faster the game can be. So that's going to take a lot of adjustment period when he gets to whatever school he goes to. And that's fine. It is what it is. It's a quarterback. You still saw that with Ty Thompson. You still saw that with, Bob Ashford. You see that with kids all the time. But I think that he's going to be a very good part of hopefully Oregon's 2024 class as he is right now. And I would expect to see him surge across the summer with all these 7-on-7 and recruiting camps in general.
You made a good point about, while it's notable that he stayed at Sunny Slope, there's going to be a learning curve and he's going to have to adjust to it, because we're seeing that right now play out at Oregon with a lower level school from Phoenix, Ty Thompson. He played and dominated at a lower level of Arizona prep football and hasn't translated right away to just a seamless transition, which is okay. He wasn't supposed to be ready, the guy, when he showed up day one. That was going to be Anthony Brown. And so he's still got time. Now, I'm not saying Luke Moga is going to have the same career arc as Ty Thompson. It could change. He could show up and just be the guy right away after Bo Nix transfers. I'm not expecting that, but that could happen. And I also like the fact that you brought up the multiple positions. He also served as a returner as a sophomore. I mean, that gives you the idea of his playmaking, explosiveness, his speed, whatever, at this position. He's competing in the Elite 11. He's trying to get to the finals. Hasn't earned an invite yet. We'll see if it happens. But it's certainly a guy he's the 33rd best quarterback in the country by the 24/7 Sports composite. He's just outside the top 10 in the state of Arizona at number 11 in the 24/7 Sports composite. He's got a collection of offers from schools that produce good quarterbacks. Not elite every single year, but they have a track record of getting guys in to the system and putting them in successful places. So it's not just Oregon that felt like this was a guy that they needed to add. Now, the question becomes, what happens next at this position? Oregon, Michael Van Buren is obviously the other big name that Oregon is recruiting right now. And maybe the most likely of the group that could commit to Oregon. The crystal ball favors Oregon here. He's a 4-star composite guy. He's the 11th best player in the country at the position. Was just in Eugene as well. And I think this is a deal where they want 2 quarterbacks, and they should probably want 2 quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they should want 2 quarterbacks. It's very clear that they are going to take 2 quarterbacks. They wouldn't, unless they really liked Moga, they wouldn't take Moga over Michael Van Buren. I think while both are good prospects, I think that Van Buren is the better of the 2, at least right now. I still am unclear on what they're going to do next season. Unless they truly feel like they can hand off the keys of the car to Ty Thompson or Austin Novosad, I would imagine that Oregon dips into the portal for the 3rd straight year, how many ever years it's been. Because while Ty Thompson was good at the spring game, mind you, he started 1 of 8. Almost had a pick 6 in the very first pass of the game. Didn't look off defenders, was very one side of the field oriented, made it very easy to cover him for the first part of the game. Got into a rhythm and showcased his talent, which is always a good thing to see during a spring game. Granted, it was against a defense that's mixed of 1, 2, and 3 on the depth chart. So if Oregon does, and Will Stein and Dan Lanning, if they feel comfortable with handing the keys to the car to Ty Thompson or Austin Novosad, whoever continues to develop better over this offseason or during the season as well, yeah, then you are going to take 2 quarterbacks, and that's going to be A-okay. But as we saw last season, with the amount of talent that jumps into the portal every season at the quarterback position, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Oregon take 3 quarterbacks technically and have a quarterback room of maybe even 6 guys if Ty Thompson sticks around. And I think that's probably what's going to happen, because I don't know if Ty Thompson is going to be the 100% guy. And this isn't a Ty Thompson argument. But from a recruiting perspective, I always think it's important to take at least 1 quarterback a class, probably 2 quarterbacks a class, because there's a chance that you hit, and there's a better chance that you don't hit on one of these guys. And the more you take in, obviously, the better it can be. And with the no limit on not scholarship totals, but number of guys you can bring in the class from 25 to unlimited, why not? There's going to be some transfers out. There's going to be some clear graduations, but like someone like Bo Nix just is out of eligibility and is going to go to the NFL. So why not bring in as many guys as you can and see who hits and see who might not hit, and just give yourself the best odds of getting somebody to come in. But yeah, I think this will all come down. I think that they'll take 2 quarterbacks in this 2024 class, regardless of what happens down the road. But that number could be 3 pretty easily if they do not feel comfortable with Ty or Austin Novosad taking over the position in 2024.
I almost think you just automatically do it. And
do what?
Take a 3rd. And in the 3rd being a transfer portal guy. Go find like an upperclassman portal guy, and basically you're competing that guy with Ty Thompson and whoever emerges between Novosad, and let's just assume Van Buren comes to Oregon here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So you add Luke Moga, Van Buren, and Novosad are competing kind of to be that 3rd guy in the race for the 2024 QB1 battle, and it's Ty Thompson and the other guy. Because like you said, like there's no limit on how many guys you can bring on campus, and maybe that initial battle is in the spring of 2024, where You've got all of them on campus, and you just basically tell them, like, look, because this is the day and age that we live in. Like, one of you guys at the end of spring is probably not going to have any chance at all in playing, and it's in your best interest to transfer.
Yeah, but they would be telling that to the guy who doesn't win the quarterback battle.
True.
Like if you're Moga or if you're Van Buren and you're heading into your first season at Oregon,
yes, those two guys
chance,
wouldn't be involved in it.
Yeah, and for Nova said they need a backup quarterback. I think that would be the message they would do. But if things go according to plan, or at least what they are on paper, and at least what people are saying about this Oregon program, it should be a rather successful season. Which in the offseason, when they need a quarterback, they're going to shoot for the stars. They're going to try to get their equivalent of whoever is the next Bo Nix to come through their campus. And what we did learn this last year is that no quarterback is safe, and that anybody, unless you're probably the starting quarterback at Georgia or Alabama or maybe even LSU, that there's a chance they could enter the portal. I mean, Michigan State lost their starting quarterback and lead wide receiver from last season, like last week. So it can happen at literally any given hour. And if you're Oregon, rightfully so, you should go after whoever is like the best quarterback in the portal and bring them to campus. And then at that point, depending on the development of Ty Thompson, it is either a quarterback competition in the eyes of maybe us, like it was with Bo Nix and Ty Thompson year one, or it's not a competition. And Oregon heads into the next season with their starter, whoever that may be, with Austin Novosad as a backup or Ty Thompson as a backup. But I would imagine that, over the course of this recruiting cycle, they're going to get two. And let's, hypothetically say it's Van Buren, because it doesn't look great for anybody else. And probably a transfer portal quarterback. So there's going to be a 6 quarterback room, and 1 or 2 people are going to have to go.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because Oregon's recruiting class right now is 9th in the country. I believe that's first in the Pac-12. And Van Buren would only enhance that. And it's been a while, too, since – I'm trying to think off the top of my head, Jared. The last time Oregon has signed 2 quarterbacks in one class. I think it was
Butterfield and Ashford.
Yeah, like 2020.
2020. Yeah.
Yeah. And then before that, it'd been a while before that too. I think it was Herbert's year when they actually signed 3. I believe it was quarterbacks: Herbert, Terry Wilson, and somebody else. If I remember,
if you
right.
want to include whoever the Eastern Washington transfer was, whose name is escaping me.
Vernon Adams.
No, the year after. Dakota. Yeah, I couldn't think of his name. I should remember because I have terrible memories from that season as a student. That's my first year in Oregon. But that was signing 3, old school signing 3. But I think 3 is, the more we look at it, the more we hear good things about Michael Van Buren. 3 seems to be the logical outcome to whatever happens this year, which again, I'm for. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I like it. It gives you basically 3 underclassmen that are all high ceiling, high potential guys, and you're just playing the odds that one of those 3 hits.
Oh yeah, I'm interested to see what the recruiting ranking for Van Buren ultimately ends up being, because he has one of the highest discrepancies I've seen in a long time.
Yes.
Not ranked in the top 247, 23rd quarterback overall. In the top 247, like I said, but then 129th, the 11th quarterback, and the 3rd player in the state of Maryland for the 24/7 Sports Composite. I think he's a 5-star on ESPN's rankings, if I remember correctly. It's a pretty big disparity. It's always fun to see those players, but again, he's been at a lot of recruiting camps recently. Elite 11. I think that his top 247 rating should go up if everybody else is very high on him. But right now, his top 247 ranking isn't significantly different than what Moga's is, but his 24/7 composite is significantly different. So I think that'll be an interesting turnaround to see how much that affects Oregon's rank in the class comparison. But I also wanted to talk about that for a second.
Sure.
The next highest Pac-12 team is Arizona at
That's
38.
not going to stay there for a while.
Oh, no. But Oregon is 9th. Next highest is Arizona at 38 in the country.
That's not good.
No, it's not. Obviously, it's still very early, but it's also not that early. Like Michigan already has 15 commitments. Ohio State has 13. Notre Dame has 14. And then Oregon only has 10, which, again, that's a good amount at this age in the recruiting cycle. But the recruiting, as we know, is now all year long. Once June or July came around, it was like, oh, free time. Not so much. Not anymore.
Not so much.
And so getting double-digit recruits at this point, I think, is very important for Oregon going forward. I think they have a good idea of what they want in their class. I feel like Oregon is trying to get the developmental guys now, and then save the top of their, or save a specific amount of spots for the top dogs and go from there.
I would agree with that. That it's very clear they're involved in a lot of guys that are 4-star and 5-star caliber guys, 150, 247 guys. And they know, those are going to be the marathons. And those are the ones that they're not going to decide until October, November, December, and probably some of them even into January and February to decide. And they know it. Some will go quick, but if you've got a guy like what we just saw this past week, Jackson Ford and Luke Moga, if you feel like these are high profile, high ceiling guys, the potential is through the roof. They can play at your program, and they can maybe be that guy that makes that jump from being a high 3-star dude to a bona fide multi-year starter at the college level. And you can get that guy today, do it. Don't let another school wrap him up, and you're now scrambling for the scrape of the barrel of potential guys in December trying to fill your class. Because that's what happens when you miss out on these big names. It's going to happen. You're not going to hit on every single one of them. And if you can find a guy or two that plays a similar position that you feel like it's going to be a dude, take them now and figure it out later.
Yeah, and the recruiting rankings are obviously going to change. I mean, Alabama's 18th. I don't imagine that they'll finish outside of the top 4. But I think I do think that it's interesting to see where Oregon is at this point and the rest of the Pac-12. I do think that Oregon puts a premium on recruiting. I think that there will be the naysayers that stars don't matter and will always point to the whataboutisms of like a Justin Herbert, who was a 3-star kid who came out and performed better than any of the 5-star quarterbacks that have come to Oregon or haven't come to Oregon. But I do think at this point stars matter. And I think what Dan is doing is trying to, like you said, play the waiting game, play the marathon, continue to do all they can to get these kids on campus as often as they can for official, unofficial visits, head to recruiting camps. So I think overall, what Dan is doing is really good for a recruiting cycle. We'll just be interested to see what they do with their quarterback situation at the end of the season. But that's not for a long time. We got plenty of months for that.
All right, that's going to do it for us here on the Autzen Audibles Podcast. Thank you for listening to the show. Go to duckterritory.com for more coverage on the Oregon Ducks throughout the week, throughout the spring, throughout the summer, all year round. Until then, you've been listening to the Autzen Audibles Podcast.
Peace.